Welcome to the last lesson of what's new in Swift 4 with Bob the Developer. Before I say anything about what we're going to learn in this lesson, as you can tell, we've got to know the basics of function programming before you proceed. By the time you finish this course with me, you'll never code the same way you've done in the past because this is a new feature and you'll definitely love it. Let's get started. Welcome to Chapter 9 of Learn Swift with Bob. Today let's talk about advanced dictionaries. So here's problem statement. Functional programming .mat Swift dictionary. So now Swift dictionary is like on steroid right now. It just allows you to do a lot of things that you weren't able to do in the past with Swift 3. Now Swift 4, amazing stuff happens. Well, first of all, let's begin with a couple features that were introduced in the this time. So let's say we have a call it default value. I'm going to talk about it soon. So this is your past. So let's say you have information about name and age, just a dictionary, and then if you try to get a name out of it, you get optional type of Bob Lee right now, which makes sense, right? We always talked about a dictionary. Yeah, the key may not exist, so it returns optional. But in Swift 4, what they do is they provide a default value API. What allows us to do is, let's say we enter foot size. Well, apparently there's no foot size in my information. I wish you guys knew about my foot size, but sometimes they don't know about it. You guys cannot know about it. Well, the only thing you have to call is default and no value. Well, this is an API provided by Apple. We just simply use their API with their user code. Same thing Apple as a name. Right, I mean, right now name exists, so it returns Bob Lee on the right side. But at the same time, the best thing about this is if you take a look at it, this is non-optional and non-optional. If you take a look above here, this is optional type. So if you're using default, you don't need to have nil here because it always a value exists. So I'll use default for every single case. So what is some practical usage? Well, pretty much everywhere when you're trying to access a proper dictionary value, I'll use default for that because I don't want to unwrap it. If you were to unwrap it, there's like at least 3 more lines to unwrap one thing at a time. So, and then you have to use that constant within that block. That's kind of painful. But default dictionary, just easy way for you to do that. Well, okay, but you definitely want to write a test for doing something like this. If you don't know about test-driven development, well, I might talk about it in the next course a little bit, which is very important for development, making a very good code. You don't want to write something that breaks easily, but you want to write tests for the specific if you don't want to try to get value out of a dictionary, you definitely want to write a test for it down the road. But just wanted to get you aware. So now let's talk about a couple dictionary features. Well, in the past, the only way for you to make a dictionary was using this way. Dictionary is just a normal struct, right? Struct, it just allows you to create a dictionary this way. You enter this one into a block, into a struct. But now a dictionary comes with many more initializers. So that means you can use various methods to create a dictionary using various means. So let's talk about it. Let's say we have an array of a contact: Julia, Susan, John, Alex. This is actually an example from the Swift documentation. I loved it. What you can actually do is you can actually combine to make a dictionary. What's happening is you can combine things with A, like first letter A, things with first letter B, things with first letter C, and then you combine with dictionary with just something like 1 second. Something like this, like that. J with Julia, John, S with Susan, and Alex. So how to do that in Swift? How to do that in dictionary? Well, it's super easy nowadays. If you take a look at dictionary now, it comes with a lot of built-in built-in init method. These are init methods available for us to initialize it. So the only thing you have to do is, well, I'm just going to copy paste this. A dictionary, you call it grouping, and enter array or anything that confirms to sequence. If you want to understand sequence, you have to go to chapter 10, learning about protocol. What it means, it's about protocol or programming language called Swift. And Swift, there's a protocol called sequence. And array, this is an array that confirms a sequence. But I'm not going to talk about it in this chapter because it can get a little there's a lot more to learn. So I made a dedicated two lesson for learning about protocol sequence and a lot more protocol and what it means to be a protocol or programming language. I don't understand what it means by Swift as a protocol or programming language. If you don't know about sequence, you don't know about what it means by Swift as a protocol or programming language. But in chapter 10, you will learn about that. Well, what sequence allows you to do is just allows you to do a loop. If you take a word sequence is nothing more than just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you can apply a for and loop, then it confirms the sequence. Just know it that way for now, and then in chapter 10 we're gonna dissect it more and more and more. Okay, just wait for me a little bit. So let's say you enter something that confirms a sequence protocol, and array confirms that sequence protocol. We're gonna enter contact, and then here's by. So what's happening is this is basically functional programming, right? You are using init method, but init method also can contain functional programming because you can pass a closure block to the init method. Init method initializers is nothing more than a method that you're trying to using a method to make properties fill with value. That's it. That's what init method initializer is. And what's happening? You're passing a closure block. And in this case, what's happening is you're passing these $sign. I guess now it refers to the first element, I believe, and then get the first refers to the first letter. But why is it optional type? Well, it's because you know that it may not contain. What if this is like simply like this way? Then yeah, you cannot. There's no. For now, we know that every single thing that contains what do you call that? A value. You can just call it for now. Well, you could do if let, and then you can do for contact and contact, and then the if let. You know what I'm talking about. You can check whether the value exists. But for now, for the simplicity, let's call it value. But of course, for that way now. Okay. All good. So now what's happening if you print grouped? Right there, it works like a charm. But okay, let's go back here. You might be thinking, oh, what's happening here? Well, I don't exactly know what's happening because this is a functional programming. Unless you take a look at we talked about the functional paradigm. We talked about how functions are created. The only thing we have to do is pass the closure block as an ask, and then the function internally does its own thing, right? If you're talking about filter, we're talking about map. And if I think about it, how they do it, I could probably make a function like this kind of function, like an init method on my own. But you don't have to. Just pass the variable, pass the closure block that you can work with. Hey, group this by that. Or you can also buy something like by just a weird name here like this. What's happening here? By. Let's see if you can enter return Bob. Okay, you're gonna ask me to enter this? Yeah, right there. Bob, Julia, Susan, John. You're simply entering a value, and then it just works internally. You don't exactly have to know what's happening inside of it. But if you want to learn how to make something like this, you can do it on your own. Okay. But that's the whole point of functional programming. Okay, we talked about one thing about it. We learned how to make a dictionary out of the contact. Well, this is very useful because if you think about the iPhone app, right? The contact list. Well, you can simply use one line of code to make the contact list thing right there, because the contact is organized by the first letter of the name. And how easy is that? It's very, very useful. So now let's talk about creating a dictionary by removing duplicates. Let's say we have an array of call it this way, duplicates. We have this is an array that has a tuple in it, and you want to create a dictionary out of this, but you want to remove the duplicates. How to do that? Well, there is also initializer. I'm just gonna copy paste it. You guys don't need to memorize anything. There's a lecture notes, right? You just have to go there, just see what are the methods out there, or you can just take a look at the API documentation in Apple and just copy their method. You don't need to memorize anything here. Understand the principle. So here we go. You gotta enter something that confirms the sequence, I believe, and this is an array block, so it confirms the sequence. And then we have unique key width. Okay, and then here letter number refers to the first, what do you call that? This closure block is, I guess, apply to the first element, the element of each array, and then you're just simply returning letter. Okay, that's what's happening here. But now if you take a look at print here, my letter, let's take a look at it now on the bottom. B7 A1. So now A1 is applied, B7 0, but the rest, because letter refers to what? Letter refers to the first letter, refers to this one. You're only returning something that has non-duplicates within letter. Okay, because this letter and this B here on the third one, fourth one the value has been there, so you're not gonna add those. So you're only returning something that is unique with A and B. Okay. That's what functional programming. This is a little functional programming. You have to take a look in there what the function is look like in order to understand what the heck's going on, but you don't have to. You understand the principle. You understand you're passing a you don't have to try to dissect everything on your own. As long as you understand the function or paradigm, we simply use their function. We just trust their functions, okay? Especially if it's written by Apple engineers, you can trust their functions, okay? If it's written by someone else with 0 stars in GitHub, yeah, you kind of be weary. Is it the best way to go about? But you kind of trust the Apple engineers in this case. But of course, they're not. Depending on the situation, you might have to customize it. You might have to create your own function. Yeah, you can do that. You understand the functional paradigm, you can create your own. Very nice and easy. Oops. So now let's talk about it. There's such called zip. What is zip here? Well, I'm just gonna copy and paste and I'm gonna walk you through. So let's say we have words 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then let's say we have a number from 1 to word count. So this is a range. This is range from 1 to word count. So 1 to, I guess there are 4, 1 to 4. And then what you can do is you can do for word and number, okay? Okay, so refers to the here refers to the each element of word. Never mind. What I'm talking about. So let's say we do zip first. I was confused a little bit. Zip. What is zip in the first place? Well, when you do zip, it allows you to enter sequence. Again, we talked about array. Array confirms a sequence protocol, and this protocol just can be used as type. We talked about in chapter 4. Yeah. So you ask you to enter sequence. Well, let's talk about this. This is a we call it generic function. It asks you to enter sequence that confirms the sequence, and also second also confirms sequence. Okay. So you can tell that. All right. This is if you take a look at the type here, countable close range. This is, I guess, this could be protocol. This could be let's see. Oh, this is a structure. Range is a structure, or this is a structure data type, and that confirms the sequence. So you're able to add this. All right, that means you can do for and loop with numbers as well as word. That's why you can apply for and loop here. That's for now. I understand you might like, what is sequence? Sequence? Well, I'm going to talk about it in chapter 10. Well, just bear with me for a second. So zip, what they do is it kind of like put together at the same time. Sequence of pairs are built out of two unifying sequences. So what zip does is they create like a dictionary like again, that's why I said dictionary, like a pair of two sequences. So this is array sequence, this is sequence from the range sequence, and you can apply they create something like tuple like, dictionary like. So now you have a word and number. Again, you can do a word and numbers. So if you take a look at the bottom here, number 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, and 4 and 4. And yeah, if you are a little confused about sequence, well, you have to wait for chapter 10. But hopefully, things are making sense. Zip, what they do is they create. It's like a wrapper. They take wrapper. You talk about protocol as a type, as a type eraser. It just takes any sequence and you just create an object out of it. And then you can do some sort of for and loop. I guess also zip also confirms to sequence protocol. Let's take a look at it. You can also do that. Oh, taking a long time to load. Come on. Okay, let's see. It returns, you can take a look at it. It returns zip to sequence. It returns zip to sequence, okay? So it creates a sequence. Yeah, it creates a sequence. It says it creates a sequence. Okay, so zip, this function creates a sequence, and that you can apply for and loop, because that thing, that zip returns sequence, you can apply for and loop. Well, it's a lot of stuff here, but let's talk about chapter 10 more. I don't want to overwhelm you too much. We can apply zip to dictionary again. We have Hoy. Let's say we have friends from Hoy, Dan, and Hoy. These are close friends in high school. You can say friends with value. Dictionary, unique key, values, zip, 1, right? Remember, this is range operator, right? 1 to infinite. Well, the infinite is stopped based on the number based on friends. When you have this this is actually introduced in Swift 4. We call it this unlimited range, but there's a limit. The limit is determined based on the number of friends element here. So right now there are 3, so probably the range will end at 3, I believe, something like this. Yeah, it will end at 3. Let's take a look at it. Let's print friends with value now. With value, let's go. Let's see what happens. So we have Hoy 1. Yeah, there's no order in dictionary. And we have 2 Dan. We have 2 Dan, 3 Hoy, and one with Hoy. So we have 1 applied to Hoy, 2 applied to Dan, 3 applied to Hoy. Okay. So again, I'm talking about the tree right now. Again, when you're looking at something, you always want to look at the forest. You want to look at the bigger picture. Right now, we're looking at tree, one specific case each time. But again, if you want to work with an array and if you want to turn it into a dictionary, just take a look at a couple methods that apply that the Swift provides, and you can just simply apply. Yeah, if you know the fundamentals, again, you can just apply anywhere if you know the why. So here comes the main part. Oh, also, by the way, you can apply functional programming in Swift, which was introduced in Swift 4 as well. So in the past, when you do set the filter, oops, I'm gonna reopen this. So in the past, when you work with sets, what happened when you set the filter, it returns an array, but now it returns set value. Okay, so how do you check whether it returns set value? Well, Playground can tell you on the right side, but also you can do the type of filter set, and it's gonna give you the type. Okay, put on the left side, the lecture notes on the right side. Okay, here we go. We have a set int on the right side. Okay, this was again in chapter 4. Not chapter 4, before Swift 4, set only return whenever we work with filter, it return array, but now return sets. Just wanted to tell you guys that. Let's see. Okay, now let's talk about the last piece, which is functional programming with dictionary. Yes, we've been always talking about functional programming with dictionary, so it should not be that of surprise for you guys. But let's take a look at it. So let's say you have a dictionary from name Bob, age 15, here, color black, yeah, I'm 15 years old. And you can also filter a dictionary with this way. Filter, $, which refers to the first one, dot key equals name. So you can only return something that has a name key on it. So if you take a look at on the bottom, let's call it filter. Boom, right there, name and Bob. And if you have a lot, that's fine. You can just remember a filter function. What they do with you make an array or a dictionary, you just append the filter thing and return it. Right? That's what's happening here. This closure block is applied to every single element right here, and then append it if that key thing matches. Okay, and also you can apply map dictionary. You can also apply map here. So dictionary map value. We call it map values. You wanna make sure map. I think. Let me see if there is a map key. Oh, there's no map key here in this case, but they provide map values. You can map like this is a string value, so you can uppercase the black. Uppercase it, lowercase it if you want to. So let's take a look at it. Map, boom, Bob became the uppercase Bob, 15, black right there. So Boom. So how easy is that to manipulate dictionary value? Well, if you've been non-functional programming in the past, you probably have to use a for and loop, and then you do a lot of you waste a lot of time and also decrease readability. But because Swift provides this amazing filter library, we use our library. Library is merely nothing more than code written by the Apple engineers. If they'd written something about this, why not use them? Why do we have to create our own function doing a bunch of things like that? So just use filter function, use mat value function, uppercase function. Yeah, we could do everything on my own, right? Again, API is nothing more than code written in Swift, but we can also create our own API, but we don't have to. We just use our API written, provide by them. And again, you don't need to memorize anything. You don't need to memorize. You just take a look at the API, take a look at my lecture notes, take a look at the references I have, and just study with that. You know, you don't need to you don't need to memorize. Memorization for fools, again, is not important. You don't, back in school you memorized when was the Viking lived, when was the time the Albert Einstein lived. You don't need to know any of those stuff now. You just can search Google nowadays. Everything is written and recorded permanently. So that's just the ability to search is actually the important skill in this case. So if you know how to search information, if you understand the fundamentals, you don't need to memorize anything. So it was a long lesson, but hope you guys now you learn how to code like a pro, right? See you guys in the next lesson. Take care. In fact, the Swift 4 new feature has changed my perspective how I look at a problem and manipulate key value within dictionaries. Even if I go to web development or server development, any other places, doesn't really matter. But some are a little overwhelmed the fact that I presented so much information in this lesson. Well, it's okay, you don't need to memorize anything. Feel free to check out the lecture notes and you have all the code out there. And memorization is no longer the valid solution. Google is available 24/7. As a programmer, as a developer, all we have to do is we understand the fundamentals and understand the fact that things exist. After, all we have to do is search and learn more. Since this is the last lesson of this chapter, let me talk to you a little bit more in the next video.